Am I the a-hole for going no contact with my family after they expected me to get back together with my ex and help her raise her affair baby? I, a 30-year-old man, had been with my high school sweetheart, Cassie, since we were 17. My parents love her and so did I. Our parents were always asking when we'd get married and give them grandchildren, and me and Cassie would always tell them when we're financially stable. We're both doing good in our careers. My job, however, sometimes requires me to leave the country. I left 7 months ago. I was due to come back this week, but a friend of mine rang and told me that Cassie is 3 months pregnant. Obviously, I'm not the father. I didn't believe my friend and rang up Cassie, and after some pushing, she finally broke down crying and admitted that she is pregnant and that it was a drunken mistake. She said she doesn't know who the father is because it was just some random guy, but that she wants us to keep the baby and raise it together. I was in shock and ended the call. I texted her and said that we were done. She tried to ring back, but I switched my phone off. I was on autopilot for a couple of days and just worked. Then my boss told me that he'd received a family emergency call from my dad, and I took the call. My dad basically said that Cassie confessed to cheating, but that it was a mistake and the baby needs a father. I saw red and told him if he was so worried about the baby, then he can step up and be there. We got into a heated argument, and I ended the call and blocked him. Both my parents and my ex have been texting on different numbers and telling me to step up, and that mistakes happen. I got so frustrated that I rang them up and told them that I was going no contact with them and that I won't be coming back home. I heard my mother and ex start crying before I hung up. It's been a week now, and I've had time to think about what happened and wonder, am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for not allowing my mother-in-law to come over to my house unannounced, and for no longer accepting anything she buys us? I've been with my husband for 3.5 years, married for just over 1 year. This past November, we had our first child. My husband is an only child, and his father was never in the picture. Him and his mom have never really been close. Now for a little backstory. We're both at odds with my mother-in-law, and it all started less than 24 hours after I had my son. My husband and I told both my mother-in-law and my mother that we didn't want our son's birth turned into a photo op. People taking pictures of me have always made me uncomfortable. My son had some complications immediately after he was born, and he was rushed to the NICU. I wasn't able to see him for roughly 9 hours. Once I was allowed to go into the NICU, my husband went with me, as this was the first time I was officially meeting my newborn son. Next thing I know, I look up and see my mother-in-law using this opportunity as a photo op. I was fuming. These were not the first pictures I wanted of my son, or of my husband and I with our son. The next morning, my mother-in-law decided she wanted to come back and see our son, who is now safe and in our room. I was running on maybe 2 hours of sleep, but still said it was okay for her to come. Once she was there, I didn't really interact with her. I was just trying to rest. After she left, she ended up calling my husband. This is when he decided to call her out on the photo op and how she completely violated a boundary that we'd clearly set. Her response floored me. She began yelling at my husband, saying that I hate her, that I don't like her and I never have, and that I'm so hateful towards her. She said her reasoning for taking the pictures was because she thought that we would want to remember that moment, and to her it wasn't a big deal and she didn't see the point of getting upset. Once all this happened, I decided I needed to distance myself from her and focus on my new family. My husband agreed with doing this as well. Fast forward to about a week and a half ago. My husband and son had been sick for over a week. I was out doing errands and getting groceries. Mother-in-law asked me multiple times if I wanted anything from the shops. I constantly told her, no, but thank you. She was doing the same to my husband, and he would also respond, no, we're good, thanks. I returned home and my son was screaming. He hadn't slept all day. We all decided to try to get some sleep. My husband finally fell asleep, and I finally got my son to fall asleep. About 10 minutes later, there was a knock on my door. My dog went flying, barking her head off and waking my son. I answered the door. It was my mother-in-law. I just said, why are you here? She responded, I wanted to bring you a rotisserie chicken, a trash can, and laundry detergent. I reminded her that we'd already said we didn't want anything and to not show up at our house unannounced, and that next time she tries to give us some random stuff from the shops, I'll immediately return it to her. We don't want anything from her. She got angry and said, "She will never come over or speak to us again," and slammed the door. Am I the a-hole? Would I be the a-hole if I report a therapist for getting me in a room with my stalker? I'm a 29-year-old man, and I've had a stalker for the past 10 years. We'll call her Emily. Emily is 30 years old. I had to get an extensive camera system on my house, make a habit of scanning my car for AirTags every morning and every evening, and keep a voice recorder disguised as a ballpoint pen in my pocket. I was able to get a restraining order last year, and I keep a copy of the paperwork in my pocket at all times, in case a public event happens. In the past, Emily has tricked my friends into setting us up on a blind double date. She has nearly had me thrown out of my own house by the police by posing as my girlfriend. She also managed to have me ostracized from my previous workplace by acting like my girlfriend. Emily is deeply disturbed, but also frighteningly convincing to people. She is insane, but the law seems content to just lock her up for brief periods then let her out repeatedly. I live a life where I'm perpetually on edge waiting for her next stunt. She has completely killed my interest in romantic relationships. Last week, I got a phone call while driving home that my friend Chris was in a really bad way. The caller, whose voice I didn't recognize, introduced herself as Dr. Taylor. She gave me an address and I headed over as quickly as I could. I do have a friend named Chris who has struggled with alcohol in the past, so I was very worried. I got to the doctor's office, went inside and, you guessed it, Emily was there. Dr. Taylor said she was here to talk about the issues I was having with my girlfriend, Christina. I turned around to walk out, but Dr. Taylor shut the door on me. She said I could not avoid the conversation any longer. I tore the paper out of my pocket and held it in her face. In a shaking voice I said, "That woman is not my girlfriend. She is my stalker." Dr. Taylor immediately apologized, opened the door, and let me out. When I got into the lobby, I called the cops. I could hear yelling from the doctor's office between Dr. Taylor and Emily. The cops arrived in about 20 minutes and dragged Emily out in handcuffs for once again breaking the restraining order. Dr. Taylor came out and was immediately apologetic. She said she was tricked, that Emily was incredibly convincing, everything I'd heard before. Dr. Taylor has just started her own private practice as a psychiatrist and begged me to not report her to the board. I've talked with a lawyer and I am well within my rights to report her, so this isn't a legal question. I admit, Emily is extremely convincing, so I can't fault most people for getting tricked by her, but Dr. Taylor is supposed to be a psychiatrist. Shouldn't she be a bit better at smelling crazy? Dr. Taylor did seem genuinely shocked, and she immediately took the right steps in protecting me from Emily the second she knew the truth. I don't know. I'm very conflicted about this. What do you think I should do? Am I the a-hole for calling my girlfriend an idiot and taking away her key after she almost burned my house down? My girlfriend wanted a pizza. I have really good frozen pizzas from the local Italian market. They are made fresh, and if you do them up on a pizza stone, they come out perfect. I have made these for us many times. It is a simple process. You take the pizza stone, put it in the oven, and let the oven preheat. Then put the pizza on the paddle and slide it onto the hot stone. Once it's ready, you slide the paddle under the pizza and pull it out. You then put it on the carving board and cut it. Easy, right? Apparently not. My pizza stone was scorched, not dirty. So, her brilliant idea was to make the pizza on my plastic cutting board because that way she could just take the cutting board out with oven mitts and cut the pizza without having to use all the tools. I got home to see black smoke coming out of my house and my girlfriend on the phone with 911. My dog is not on his leash and he's going crazy. I go to the front door to see if it's hot in the house or if I can see flames. No flames, no heat. I get to the stove and turn it off. I open the sliding door to let out more smoke and get my leash on the way out. The firefighters are there within 5 minutes and the smoke is already dissipating. They go in to make sure. All clear. Thank God they were there less than an hour. It is covered by the city, but if it was over an hour, I would have been charged for the response. My oven is ruined though, and I have a lot of smoke damage to clean up. I told my girlfriend I was glad she was okay, but that she's a moron and she wasn't allowed in my house alone for a while. I took her key away. We do not live together, but she has roommates and likes having a big house to herself on her days off. She says that it's a mistake anyone could make and that I'm a jerk for calling her names. Yes, she said those words. She says it's my fault for not just getting microwave pizza and having to eat fancy.